All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for being here. I'm going to take you on a 2-year journey of translating user-generated content at Mercari. That's how we go global and how we use LLMs in production. All right, so my name is Aymeric, and I've been at Mercari since 2021. And I've worked on the Mercari's global expansion since 2023, and approximately on content translation since then as well. All right, so what I'll talk about today, what is user-generated content, or what is static content, understanding the product, our product and our users to make certain trade-offs, the differences between classic translation models and LLMs, and then a list of models that we used over the past 2 years, how we scaled LLMs, and some non-AI features to finish. All right, so let's start. What is user-generated content? Let's take this screenshot. So Mercari is a C2C marketplace, meaning all the products on that marketplace, they are created by the users. The title and the descriptions, they are written by the user. We have other types of user-generated content. They can write their profiles, they can write comments on the items, they can make reviews when they buy, and the search queries that they make as well. I'm not going to talk about search, it's a fairly more complex topic. And everything else on this page that you see, the buttons and the explanation around the price, your sections, they're all static content. So you have them, they are baked in the product before, so you can translate them beforehand. All right, now we need to understand the product and the users, how it worked. So let's start with the business model at Mercari. Mercari is mostly a C2C company. In case of a traditional B2C, you have your item, you write it once, you sell it many times, you can easily amortize the cost of translation. In C2C, you will translate it once and you will sell it once. So the cost has a lot more impact. And in our case, we need to translate to multiple languages. Everything is written in Japanese. And we actually right now support English and traditional Chinese and expanding to more languages soon. So now we have a question, when do we need to translate? We can do it as soon as the item is listed or when it's visited or on demand. And what happens when it's updated? In B2C, it may not be updated that often. But in C2C, users actually, depending on the questions they receive or just they notice some mistakes, they keep updating their descriptions and we have to retranslate, which adds to the cost. And actually, we have some users who game the system. They think that updating the descriptions means they are going to go back up in the search rankings. And so some of them, about 1% of them, if we translated every update, they would cost us 25% of the translation budget. So we have to work around that as well. And finally, we have some additional requirements like marketing. Regarding whether an item is visited or not, they actually want to push those to some ads platforms or some shopping platforms like Google Shopping. And we have to have the items translated. So in our case, we chose a hybrid approach. The reason is for marketing, within certain categories, they want them immediately. So as soon as it's listed, it gets translated, they can push it to the platforms. For other categories, it would be too expensive to translate everything. So we just wait for the user to visit. It comes with a caveat. The first time they will visit that page, well, you get a higher latency, so they will have to wait. But we mitigated it a little bit, so I'm going to talk about this as well. We tried on demand, but it didn't give us good results. It's very similar to how you see it on social media platforms where you usually have a please translate button. But users wouldn't see it and they wouldn't use it as much. So in terms of business, it didn't give the same results. All right, so I'll do a very short demo with a video. We start from the search result page and we open this item. And you see the translation comes a few seconds later. You can go back and forth between Japanese and English. And if there's an issue, the user can report the problem. So now we saw, that's the first visit. Sorry, that's the first visit. So the user has to wait a little bit. So how we mitigated that is that for every subsequent visit, we actually cached the translation. So every subsequent visit, it's returned immediately, so the user doesn't have to wait. And that's the best we could find. and in terms of cost, it's better for us. All right, so let's do let's look at some differences between classic translation models and LLMs. So DeepL and Google Translate are pretty famous services, and they are pay-as-you-go, and they are based on the number of characters. They have high rate limits, low latency. They have some additional features like a glossary, which is useful when you want some word in your original language to be translated to a very specific word in the target language. And that's the case, for example, when you work with anime characters, manga characters, and titles. They have very specific translations, and sometimes the models, even those, they do not know. So it's really useful, and you get always consistent results. If you give it an input, you usually get the same output. With large language models, well, they have two models, either pay-as-you-go or some reserved capacity. So you book the capacity, but you pay whether you use it or not. But they have stricter rate limits, and it may not support our scale. Latency is inconsistent. You get better latency with the reserved capacity, but not so much with pay-as-you-go. It has absolutely no glossary. It's just a LLM, and results are inconsistent. You can give it the same input multiple times and get different results. All right, so let's look at the models that we used over the past 2 years. So let's first, we started with DeepL. When we started, GPT-3 had come out a few months before, and that was all that was available then. And DeepL was famous for a very good quality of its Japanese translation. The price point would be the same, but we got higher rate limits and lower latency. We got the glossary as well, so it just was better for the users. So it felt like the safer choice, and we went with DeepL. So I'm going to talk a bit about the price. I cannot reveal how much we pay, so let's consider this 100 units at the time. And the results, we A/B tested without translation and then with this translation, and we could see an increase in the number of purchases. So we paid a lot, but we got a lot of money back for our efforts, and that's the direction that we take going global. So that was a very good start for us. All right, now move on to ChatGPT. So the reason we wanted to test ChatGPT, mainly it became cheaper. There were new models, and it also gave us an opportunity to play a bit more with LLMs about 2 years ago, so it was still fairly new. It was interesting. We started with 3.5 Turbo. At the time, we saved about 30% on translation. And yeah, just that was big savings. A few months later, we moved on to 4.0 Mini, and then we were at 10 units. So we already divided the cost by 10 since DeepL. So it's really tremendous at that point. And we also A/B tested DeepL versus ChatGPT. And when I say no impact, it means we didn't see any decrease or increase, but we saved 90% of the cost. So for us, it was perfect. So now we use a LLM, so we have to talk about the prompt. And the descriptions, they are fairly short. They're about 300 characters in Japanese, so that's 300 tokens. So if we use a very long description, a very long prompt, the 30% that we were saving originally, we would actually lose them, or we could actually lose money if we have a too long prompt. And when you're in a fairly controlled environment, we have limited number of characters in input. We can limit the outputs as well. So yeah, that was our first prompt. Super simple and super cheap. And it actually worked really well. As I said, in terms of business metrics, we got what we wanted. So we started with that. It comes with a caveat. Obviously, it's super simple, so you get some prompt injections. Well, you can overwrite anything, and then you get the translation is some coding assistant here. But we can control it and use our list on Mercari to sell things. So actually, we didn't see so much of it. We limit it, and we take it down. So please don't do it, and we will take it down. All right. So now Gemini. The main reason we wanted to move to Gemini is Mercari uses GCP extensively. We don't use Azure that much, so all our platform tooling and all our engineers are used to GCP. So in terms of maintenance, having ChatGPT in Azure was an additional maintenance effort for us. And that was the main motivation there. Gemini actually came a little later than ChatGPT, so it was, anyway, we had to wait. So Gemini 1.5 Flash came out, and the price point was similar to what we had, so it was mostly the result. And actually, we got a surprise. We divided the cost by 10, and it's a combo of us misreading the price sheet. Well, we were lucky there. And when just before we released, Gemini 2.0 came out, and they decreased the price of 1.5. So it's like a double effect. And well, now we divided the cost by 100 compared to DeepL. So at that time, like, we were super happy. We still use Gemini. It's super cheap. So right now, no more problems. All right. But models, there are new models every single day. But now they have a short lifespan. We have to deprecate them, or actually we don't have, they do, Gemini or ChatGPT, so we cannot use them forever. And so we were using 1.5 Flash, but Google actually released 2 versions of 1.5 Flash, 1 and 2, and it was super cheap. Gemini 2.0 just came out, but it was just slightly more expensive, so we decided, you know what, for 3 months, we could get another 3 months with 1.5 Flash. We're just going to change the name of the model. We launch it, no need to A/B test, it's the same model, except that performance was definitely not the same. So for whatever we translate upon listing, just for marketing, there's no problem, but that first user, he had to wait a little bit more. So for a few days or a few weeks, unfortunately, that was the result. As I said, 2.0 Flash, the Gemini 2.0 was out. We could use it, which we did. It's slightly more expensive, but sincerely, the price at that point is no more an issue. So we looked at the latency. It's better. It's not perfect, and we look at it, but it's fairly stable at this point. And yeah, we still use 2.0 to this day. But we still didn't change our prompt, and Gemini 2.0 decided that everything should start with, here is the translation. So this is Mercari US, where we list our Japan items after translation. And well, everything starts like the titles, as you can see. So, well, not too complicated. We update the prompt. We still have the same rule. We want it to be cheap. We make small changes, and it worked. So that's what we used. All right. To this day, we still use Gemini 2.0 Flashlight. And now I'm going to talk about how we scale LLMs. Or how we scale LLMs. I said earlier, LLMs have restrictive pay-as-you-go rate limits. And with ChatGPT, it would not support our scale. So this is Mercari's traffic. You can see the valleys during the nights, fairly high traffic during the day, and peaks during the evenings. And it would not, ChatGPT would not support that. So I talked about paid capacity before. So we had to resort to that. Microsoft calls it PTU, and Google calls it GSU. And how it works is you pay for a certain capacity, but you pay whether you use it or not. So if you look at this, you can see that below the horizontal line, it uses your PTU. And during the day, you use 100%, so your cost is optimized, but during the night, you just waste money. And whatever is above the line, then you use the pay-as-you-go. And it's not as granular as we would like. So actually, the game is to find the right amount of PTU so that you optimize the cost, but that you still support you still have enough pay-as-you-go during the peaks in the evening. It worked for us, and we used it for ChatGPT. And actually, by the time we moved to Gemini, the rate limits increased quite a bit. And since then, we don't need it anymore. But as we scale to more and more countries and more languages, we may have to resort to it. So we'll see. It makes the implementation a bit more complicated, but it was worth it then. All right. Then I have a couple of non-AI features I want to talk about. The first one, which I already mentioned, is just reporting, like measuring the user experience by reporting bad translations. We experimented with a few different designs, but we wanted it to be super simple for the users. So here they just press a button when they have an issue. And that's it. So we don't know exactly what. And initially we were worried they would just report anything or like misreport things. So we rolled it out slowly. And we just looked at the reports ourselves, and we checked, did we actually find something wrong with the descriptions? And we did. Most reports were actually valid. And we've used it. It confirmed a few of the issues that we had already observed, which I mentioned. LLMs don't do too well with character names like Pokemons and all those anime series. And Pokemon are pretty well documented, so they perform better on Pokemon than anything else. But yeah, and this is how it looks. This is the number of reports over time. When we launched Gemini 2.0, we can see a huge peak then, and we can see when we changed the prompt and everything improved. And of course, it's a noisy metric, so that's why I mentioned when we have campaigns, well, it goes up. But at least when we change models, it's a very good metric to measure, to verify that we didn't miss something. In the case of here is the translation, it's not something that was happening 100% of the time, but it was happening often enough that users noticed it. Right. The last feature is the glossary. It's actually quite complicated to implement, but just as an example, Cabigon is the name of a Pokemon, and most models will actually translate it to Cabigon, which is just the romanization of the katakana. But the real name is Snorlax. And so in that glossary, we can just say, hey, every time you see Cabigon, you will translate it to Snorlax for English, and in Chinese, it has yet another name. And the way to do it depends if we are using English or Chinese in this case. So definitely we need to tokenize the text to find the keywords to replace. In English, we can simply take the Japanese text, replace the Japanese keyword by its equivalent in English, and then give it to the LLM. It will return a proper translation. But in Chinese, it doesn't work in traditional Chinese because the Chinese characters and the Japanese characters are the same. And so when we replace the characters and translate, then ChatGPT doesn't make the difference. Gemini doesn't make the difference. It translates whatever it wants. So instead, we augmented the prompt, giving it a table saying like, hey, those keywords, translate them like that. And it worked for us. So now we have two different prompts for English and traditional Chinese. All right, I'm at the end of the talk. So here are like the few takeaways and the future work that we're going to do. The takeaways was we started from the user experience. It was really important to us. And it also enabled us to optimize the cost. So understanding how users use the product and understanding our product was important. We started super simple. We A/B tested, and the only time we didn't A/B test, we saw the result. And there are newer models all the time, but the new models they never impacted our business metrics. We never sold more just by changing a model. And considering the price of more expensive models, there's no way the cost will justify the better quality. Users are smart, they understand that it's machine translation, and that's good enough for us. So the last thing we do is monitor new models and expiry dates. The next one is February, so Gemini 2.0 retires in February 26, and that's the next time we're going to change our model. All right. Future work. So there is more user content to translate. We only do the products, the description and the title. There are the user profiles, the comments on our products, also the search queries where we want to do better. And ideally, we'd like to reduce latency and improve the quality. Mainly, it will go through our glossary feature. All right, thank you very much. I want to credit Amit and Christophe, who actually worked on those features. And if you want to read more, wrote an article, and there are more details there. Thank you very much.
Aymeric さん、ありがとうございました。